You wake up in the same bed, you drive the same route, you work the same hours, but every year the money buys less and nobody told you that was part of the deal. This is not inflation you're experiencing. This is extraction. This is a machine built centuries ago, oiled with the sweat of farmers and factory workers, now running on your paycheck while economists call it progress. The tax machine doesn't just take your money, it takes more of your life every single year, and it was designed to do exactly that. Go back to 1799. England is at war with France. The British Empire needs gold to feed its armies. William Pitt the Younger stands before Parliament and announces a temporary measure, a tax on income, just for the war, he promises, just until Napoleon is defeated. The workers nod. The merchants agree. It's patriotic, it's necessary, it's temporary, except the machine, once built, never stops running. Even after Waterloo, even after the cannons go silent, the tax remains. They called it temporary, but they built it permanent. This brings us to stage one, the emergency. Every great trap begins with a crisis. War, plague, economic collapse. The people are afraid and fear makes them willing to surrender what they would never give up in peacetime. The income tax arrives wrapped in the flag, dressed in the language of shared sacrifice. Just a small percentage, they say. Just from the wealthy, they promise. But the machine has no loyalty to its creators. Once the mechanism exists, once the infrastructure is in place to reach into every pocket and extract a portion of every transaction, the only question left is how much. Stage 2 is the normalization. By 1913, the United States introduces its own income tax with the 16th Amendment, 3% on incomes over $3,000. Most Americans don't even qualify. This isn't about you, they say. This is about the Rockefellers and the Carnegies. The common man has nothing to fear, except the machine is patient. Within 7 years, rates climb to 73% at the top bracket. Within 30 years, the average worker is filing returns. The emergency becomes the expectation. Your grandparents couldn't imagine a world where the government takes money before you even see your paycheck. You can't imagine a world without it. Here is where the system reveals its true design. The income tax is not a fixed amount. It is a percentage. And percentages have a beautiful feature for those who control the machine. They scale automatically. When prices rise, when your boss gives you a 3% raise to keep up with inflation, the tax machine takes its cut of that raise without anyone voting, without any new law, without any announcement. You are not making more money. You are just staying even. But the machine treats it as growth. This is called bracket creep, and it was not an accident. It was engineered. Stage 3 is the invisible expansion. They don't need to raise the rate to take more from you. They just need to print more currency, devalue what you hold, and watch inflation push you into higher brackets. In 1960, the median American household paid an effective federal income tax rate of roughly 11%. By 1980, after 2 decades of inflation, that same relative income level was being taxed at nearly double that rate. Not because the law changed, but because the dollars were worth less and the bracket stayed fixed. The machine feeds on inflation. The more they print, the more you pay, and nobody calls it a tax increase. But here is the part they don't teach you in school. The income tax is just one mouth of the beast. Stage 4 is the multiplication of mechanisms. Once they have normalized taking a percentage of your labor before you receive it, every other entity in the chain wants the same deal. Social Security tax, Medicare tax, state income tax, local income tax, sales tax on what you buy with what's left, property tax on the home you think you own. The machine doesn't just take once, it takes at every transfer, every transaction, every moment value changes hands. You are not a citizen in this system. You are a resource being harvested at each stage of processing. Consider the math, because the math is where the trap locks shut. Let's say you earn $50,000. The federal government takes roughly 15% before you see a dime. Your state takes another 5%. Social Security and Medicare take 7.65%. You are already down to $36,000 and you haven't bought food yet. You spend that money and sales tax takes another 7 to 10% depending on where you live. You drive to work and gas taxes take their cut. You own property and the county takes its annual fee, or you'll lose the deed. When the dust settles, the effective total tax rate, the real percentage of your economic output that flows to government at all levels, is not the 15% they quote. It is closer to 40%. Nearly half of your labor belongs to the machine before you can use it to build anything for yourself. This is where the system turns deadly. Stage 5 is the compounding effect. Because you cannot keep half of what you earn, you cannot save quickly. Because you cannot save quickly, you must borrow to buy the things your parents could afford with cash. A home, a car, an education. And when you borrow, another machine activates. Interest. The banking system, often partnered with the same government that taxed you into debt, now charges you a percentage of everything you owe every year for decades. The tax machine and the debt machine run in parallel, both extracting percentages, both compounding, both ensuring you stay in motion, earning, spending, never accumulating enough to stop. By the 1970s, governments realized they had a problem. Inflation was pushing people into higher brackets so quickly that voters were getting angry. So they introduced indexing, adjusting the brackets for inflation to prevent automatic increases. This sounds like relief. It was not mercy, it was maintenance. They were not stopping the machine. They were recalibrating it to run smoother, to extract at a sustainable rate without triggering rebellion. The tax still grew. It just grew at a pace you couldn't feel in a single year. Stage 6 is the illusion of refunds. Every spring, millions of people celebrate. They're getting money back from the government. They call it a refund, as if the state is being generous. But this is the most elegant piece of psychological engineering in the entire system. That refund is your own money. You overpaid all year, giving the government an interest-free loan, and now they return the excess while you feel grateful. The machine has trained you to thank it for giving back a fraction of what it took. Now apply this directly to your life. Every January, you see the pay stub. You see the gross income, the number that represents the value of your hours. Then you see the deductions: federal, state, Social Security, Medicare. By the time the direct deposit hits, 30% is already gone, and that is before you pay for anything. This is not taxation as your grandparents understood it. They paid taxes once a year on what they had left. You pay before you even hold the money. The machine has moved upstream. It takes first, and here is the mechanism they never explain. The government does not need your tax money the way you need your paycheck. They print currency. They borrow trillions at rates they set. The taxes are not funding the government. The taxes are removing currency from circulation to control inflation, to prevent the money they printed from devaluing too fast. You are not paying for roads and schools. You are being used as a sponge to soak up excess currency so the system doesn't hyperinflate. The tax is not revenue. It is a release valve on a pressure system, and you are the steam being vented. Once you sign that W-4 form, the clock starts ticking against you. Every 2 weeks, the extraction happens automatically. You do not write a check. You do not see the money leave. It vanishes before arrival, which is the key to making it tolerable. If you had to physically hand over 30% of your cash every pay period, you would feel the weight of it. But withholding makes it invisible. The machine has learned that people will tolerate anything they don't have to actively perform. The numbers have changed, but the leash is exactly the same length. In 1799, the British worker paid a small percentage to fund a war. In 2025, you pay 10 times that percentage to fund a system that grows every year, employs millions, regulates billions of transactions, and never asks permission to take more. The emergency is permanent. The temporary is eternal. The machine, once born, does not die. This is not a conspiracy, this is a business model. The government is not evil. It is simply doing what all organisms do. It grows, it seeks resources, it adapts to resistance. When people complained about high rates, the machine didn't shrink, it diversified. It created new taxes with softer names, fees, contributions, penalties. Each one small enough to ignore, together large enough to keep you from ever accumulating the wealth that would let you exit the system. Look at your parents. Look at your grandparents. They paid taxes their entire lives. They worked 40 years. And when they retired, the machine was still there, taking a cut of their social security, taking property tax on the home they paid off decades ago, taking sales tax on their groceries. There is no finish line. There is no moment when the machine says you have paid enough. It runs until you stop, and then it runs on your estate. This is the intelligence of the design. It does not take everything at once. It does not seize your home or throw you in chains. It takes a percentage, just enough that you keep working, just enough that you stay functional, never enough that you revolt. The machine has calculated the maximum extraction rate that a population will endure before it breaks, and it operates just below that line, forever. The worker in 1799 and the worker in 2025 are solving the same problem. How do I keep enough of what I earn to survive while the system takes its share? The only difference is scale. The machine is bigger now. It has more mouths. It has more mechanisms. But the core function is identical. You labor. It extracts. You receive what remains. And every year, through inflation, through bracket creep, through new fees and expanded programs, the percentage shifts just a little higher. And you adjust because what choice do you have? But here is the crack in the system. The machine requires your consent. Not legal consent, psychological consent. It requires you to believe this is normal, that this is how civilization works, that there is no other way. The moment you see it as a mechanism rather than a natural law, the moment you recognize that it was built by people and can be rebuilt differently, the machine loses its primary defense. It relies on invisibility. It relies on complexity. It relies on you never sitting down with a calculator and adding up the true percentage of your life that flows into its gears. Understanding this history is not about anger. It is about accuracy. The income tax is not a civic duty that fell from the sky. It is a tool invented in a specific moment for a specific purpose by people who needed to fund wars and control populations. And like all tools, it has been refined, optimized, and expanded far beyond its original design. You are living inside the mature version of an experiment that began with a temporary wartime measure and became the permanent foundation of modern governance. If this opened your eyes to the cage you are living in, subscribe, because in the next video we dismantle the rest of the illusion.